Hey, I'm Cil, and I'm here chatting with Milky. I started making music like kind of later, but I always had a love for it. You know what I mean? The first time that I had, recognized that I wanted to do it, I was probably around like 8 years old. And it was because I got a piano as a gift from like a distant relative of mine. And I spent an entire summer just learning it and falling in love with it. So I'd always, been connected to music. And then, around like 16, I moved out to LA to live with an uncle of mine. And I was like, my biggest priority was just like, I want to create. I want to express myself. I want to, become the artist that I know that I am on the inside. So I worked and I hustled and I did my thing. And then I released my first song in 2022. And the rest is, we're figuring it out. So I think that I've gotten, obviously I've grown and I've been through, things that kind of like matured me as a human being and as a woman, especially too. I think that a lot of my past was, and my past with like, especially my art, was really based off of like the anger I felt. Everything was unfair. I was like this like super emotional kid. So I was angry, and I think that was like something that I had hid behind. And now, as I've grown, especially with music, I've been allowed to express and explore my femininity more, and I will always have that attitude. I think that's probably never going away. Yeah, I think it's really just like I've been able to explore my the deeper parts of myself, the more vulnerable parts of myself. And this music is really a testament to how far I've come, not as an artist, but as an individual and as self, This entire project was created based off of like a year's worth of experiences in my life. And I mean, like, that was just like I grew so much, in 2023 and 2024. And a lot of the themes, it does tackle heartbreak, but it's just like it's more complex. I think growing into myself and in the past, I always thought that it was one or the other. It was hot or cold. I either love you or I hate you, in the recent like year, I've learned through my experience that it's not always that easy. It's not always that simple. And so it tackles kind of like loving a person, but also, the juxtaposition of, hating how they make you feel. So it's really like, that's the biggest theme throughout, is just like learning how to figure out what's best for you, to choose what's best for you, and also holding yourself truly accountable. Name of the EP, holding yourself accountable to doing right by yourself, I mean, I've always been in love with like the 90s. I think one of my favorite, like somebody I think I'd fangirl over is like Babyface. And I just always loved like the sound of the 90s and the nostalgia of it all. I think that it brings in a lot of that. You can hear a lot of that, and you can hear what I was, listening to, what I was feeling, in the sonics of it. It also brings in other things that like I've always like as a like core, from my core, I've always felt drawn to, like, Gary Moore and Prince and all of those, like they were all influences of what I was doing. When I looked up, and I saw the project that I'd created, I was like, it has all of these influences, but it's so uniquely me. But yeah, it was really like out of the 90s. And then, blues, I think, also plays a huge part in it as well. I've been a freestyler most of my life. Most of my life, I mean most of my musical life, which obviously hasn't been very long. The first time I was ever in a studio, I freestyled. And that was how I started like writing. And this EP, I wanted it to feel as raw as possible. I wanted it to be, the most honest interpretation of myself. So a lot of them started with freestyles. But I also, as I'm growing and as I'm getting older as an artist, I've found a lot of value in sitting and having real intention, with it. It's a mix. This project. It's a lot of that old style that I used to do of freestyling, and you can hear that in a lot of the records like Loser, you can hear that, and Forgot to Be My Lover, you can hear that. But then there's the ones that are very intentional. That was like Rhythm of Love, and Hot Shit was very intentional. So it's kind of like a mix of my two different styles and two different approaches. It's kind of tough because there's like so many that I love and that I would just, and also this EP is so diverse, I think. But if it was really up to me and what I was playing, I would definitely play like Forgot to Be My Lover. That one, I don't know, it just speaks to me. And also it is that, balance, and it's kind of my two sides. I'm a Gemini, so it's my two sides of like there's something very sweet about it, but also I'm still on some fuck you shit at the same time. So yeah. I think one of my favorite lines of the EP is from Loser, actually, and it's got that D2 personality, a dick by design. Because when I was like freestyling, that lyric just popped out, like it just came out, and I was like, does that make sense? And then like the more I sat with it, I was like, that's probably the best thing you've ever said. So that's one of my favorites. The biggest highlight actually is the view that I've been able to experience. I mean, the Opera House is the prettiest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, probably, and the harbor. I don't really have a bucket list. I don't have expectations. I think that the best way to live your life is with no expectations. I'm just gonna kind of see what happens. Okay, there's one thing, and it's to get an Aperol spritz. That's it. That's my big thing. I gotta go have a drink. Prince, Etta James, and Phil Collins. Phil Collins? Can I say that? That would be a dream for me. Swimming, Mac Miller. Lady Bird. Don't Fuck It Up. Hannah Montana. Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. The Descendants. It's a punk band. Stevie Nicks. Spice Girl. Dodger Stadium. I Have Nothing by Whitney Houston. Honestly, McGee. That would be, I'd be like, oh shit. That'd be fun. Michael Jackson. Enjoy Where You're At. The best is yet to come is a lie. So enjoy where you're at. Loving and Leaving a Narcissist. Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow by Roberta Flack. My mom had this old boombox radio, and it was playing 97.3. That was her station. She loved it. And Stevie Nicks came on the radio, and I heard Dreams for the first time, and I cried. And I just knew that I wanted to do that, for everybody else. I wanted to be the soundtrack to somebody else's life.